Okay, so recording should be happening. All right. Well, hello, my name's Thomas Howard, and today I'm joined by my friend and great photographer, Neil Bedford. Neil, how are you first?
Hi, Tom. Yeah, really good actually. Yeah, brilliant.
Did you know our goes back to 2013? We've known each other for over 10 years.
That doesn't surprise me, but I wouldn't have known the date, no.
I
Um,
had to, I did have to look it up last night.
uh,
It's, a lot's changed since then, hasn't
a lot
it?
has changed. A lot has changed since you were bringing sausage rolls to the set. Yeah.
Yes. So let's just get straight into it. Just to ease you into the conversation, I'm going to ask you 10 questions about your career so far. Can you tell me your first, your earliest memory of being a photographer?
Oh, yes. Let's try. Um, Obviously, I mean, I've been shooting now for, well, when did we meet? 2013. So I must have left university at 2010. So I must have been doing a couple of years before then. But I suppose the earliest memory is a lot of photographers, which always makes me cringe. They'll say, I can remember being given a camera by my dad or my uncle. I don't have anything like that. So all my kind of earliest memory would be really back at university when I started studying
Mm.
and shooting there. Either in the studio or when you'd get set a project which you would be given about 3 months to hand in 8 photographs, which seems, you know, incredible now because you that's kind of your day. So it would
Yeah,
be going back, it would be some time at uni, off the top of my head, something in the studio there that I would have handed in. But I don't have a romantic story. I don't have a lifelong love of photography. I don't come from a family of photography or creative, or creatives. So it's not as romantic as I'd probably want it to be. It is just, yeah, when I started studying and got a camera. There's one photo. There's one vivid memory, and I might be making this up in my head. It might to sound better.
mm,
But I was studying at college. I wasn't doing photography. I was doing fashion design and textiles. I kind of realized I wasn't the guy who was going to design clothing or had too much of an interest in textiles.
mm,
So I did pick up a camera at college. And then I remember buying my first camera, and I smuggled it in because you're not allowed to take cameras with big lenses, if you like, into football games. And I remember taking one to Bradford,
mm,
and I smuggled it in. And I was sat in the cop, and we got a penalty. And I remember zooming in. It's when digital cameras came with 10, 20 times digital zoom, so you could get
mm,
really close. And I zoomed in, took this photograph of, I can't remember the player, but he took the penalty, and I've got the picture just as he's kicked it, and you can see the keeper going the other way. And I remember putting it on the screen as a screensaver on my old PC in my bedroom,
mm,
and my dad coming in and saying, where's that photograph from? And I was like, oh, I took it at the game. Took it game last night. And I remember this kind of look on his face as to be like, well, maybe he's making a good decision. That kind of, I'll always remember that, whether or not he was thinking that, or he might have been thinking, that's crap, and I'm paying for you to go to uni.
mm.
But yeah, that's a memory. I do remember that.
That's a nice one. I think that's good. I think it's one of those moments where also like, when a parent sees something and goes, you know what, let's go for this and let them do
Yeah.
it. And that's important. So, do you remember the first job you were actually commissioned to by a magazine or from a company
Yes.
to kind of
Maybe not my first exactly, but I think it was I think it was for FHM magazine, and it was shooting Ugg boots for men. So men were apparently going to start wearing Ugg boots, and
did that ever happen?
which part?
Men wearing Ugg boots.
I don't think so. I think Beckham was spotted once. But that I can remember it was. a quarter page, so not even a full page. Um, from the top of my head, we had 400 quid to do everything for that quarter page, which seemed great
Mm.
because we were definitely going to clear £100. Um, and now you kind of sort of making £100 in the shadows of jobs now, if you know. But I was so made up because I'd been in with my portfolio to see the editor at the time. He was called Steve Beale. Um, and I'd been in with my portfolio. It must have had 12 pages in it because I was just coming out of university. So everything in there would have been crap. And you think back now, I can still see those photographs you took. And there was no knowledge in there. There was no real composition going on. There's certainly no expertise. And anyway, he said, yeah, all right, you can do a quarter page. And yeah, that was it. We couldn't get a model. I remember we couldn't get a model, so we used the stylist's mate who lived opposite him, um, and we shot it in his house, and that was basically it. That was the start of, I think, me learning how to communicate with um,
And how
editors and magazines and blah blah blah.
and how did that meeting come about? Did you email
I
him, or did
can't.
you kind of how did
No,
you
I don't.
what was
I
the
don't
first steps?
remember.
Did
I
they
don't
reach out to you?
remember.
Because I guess probably didn't have a portfolio or like a website then or anything like that. So
No, I did have a little website. Websites when I left. So I left uni initially 2007, and then I had a year off, and then went back 2008 and did a master's till 2010. So when we left in 2007, websites were around, but they were very basic. They weren't brilliant, and you certainly couldn't afford to have anything super.
mm.
So my website would have been terrible. But I did have it, and I did have a small portfolio. I bought it from the London, I think it's called London Graphics Centre, a generic one,
Mm.
because the portfolios we use now are a few hundred quid. And again, you're going back to 2007, you do not have a few hundred quid spare um, to hold your photographs. Um, I can't remember how the meeting happened. Um, let's just say someone put us together, and I was in there with my portfolio. But yeah, that bit eludes me because it was definitely in the interim of finishing the BA and going back to do the master. So it would have been 2008. So it's 16 years. It's hard to recall that one.
And when you started out, was there any one that you had envisioned like to kind of try and be, or kind of who was your hero at the time? Like,
Yeah.
was there like a
Um,
kind of like goal of I want to get here and that he's my hero because I want to be like him.
yeah. No, not really. I had photographers that I really liked, but that never thought I would get close to, and you still don't because there's so many people doing this profession that you've got a lot of people who are very good. And I'd like to class myself as being, I think I'm in a position now of being acceptable. But then you've got this high level. So, you've got people who I was obsessed with, like Richard Avedon, David Bailey, Irving Penn. Um, you know, it's so difficult to hit the levels of those. So I still hold those as like not heroes because heroes come in different forms for me now, but in high regard. And then you've got like modern day people like Jack Davidson, who I absolutely love. Every time I'm seeing work of his, I'm in awe. The same with Alex Soff, still people like that who I absolutely love. But I think you stop wanting to be like them. I think you've got contemporaries, so there's people who I would put myself alongside, and occasionally you think you could work more like them or be busy like them, but no one really knows if we're any all busy anyway. It's all smoke and mirrors, especially with social media. We can all pretend we're busy all the time.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, it just go back to having the iconic photographers such as Avden, Penn, and Bailey, really, and then the newer ones, Soph and Davidson's brilliant. Um, yeah,
cool. And what would you say has been your biggest career achievement so far? What would be the
I think just
standout thing?
Yeah, I think just doing it. I think leaving university the first time, realizing I wasn't good enough I certainly couldn't call myself a photographer. Understanding I had to go back and re-study and just give myself that other 2 years. And so obviously I was good enough to get back into the educational system, doing that. And then still, since 2010, so 14 years still been here doing it, coming from a very different background of two parents who did very kind of I don't know what the best word is, but my dad's a civil engineer, my mum's a nurse, so they're not creative people
Mm,
whatsoever. So to kind of go against that when you were pushed in all kinds of directions that involved education growing up, um, so it would be to have overcome that, to prove them wrong in some regard, because they were still very supportive, but to have come for it all, made a career, and still being here doing it. And then there's like your smaller, I remember probably when we met, I don't know if I'd signed with my first agent when we met. I don't think we had. I think you helped that happen. You were doing production, and I think you facilitated me meeting Laura. So
yeah.
that at the time seemed that was that would have been a big achievement at the time because, once you start shooting and you start getting busy and gaining a little bit of experience and popularity, if you like,
Mhm.
to then have someone say they'd like to represent you, So even that would probably signing with your first agent because that leads on to your second agent and
Mm.
now I'm with my third. Not that I chop and change, but that would be probably a big achievement. The shoots are by the by because each time you shoot, I think you gain something new. So you're still learning,
Mm.
or I'm still learning all the time. So I can't really say like this was the biggest achievement shoot wise because I think I'm still on the journey of achieving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You photographed some several, well, so many athletes, musicians, and actors over the years. Like just to name a few, like Kobe Bryant, David Beckham, Pharrell Williams, Ed Sheeran, Liam Gallagher. The list goes on. Do you ever get nervous?
I did. I did used to. And when I do get nervous, I'm not getting nervous through fear of what I'm about to do with the photographs. It's more, do I look a dickhead? Like, am I gonna try and tell the wrong joke? Joke that just falls on deaf ears. That
Mm.
I get a bit nervous of that. So sometimes I'm trying to hold myself back. Because as a photographer, you have to be somewhat of an extrovert. You have to be able to hold the room, if you like. And that's something that I've had to work at because take, for example, a wedding speech, cannot do them, terrible, hate them, talking in front of people, giving guest lectures, all of that, I hate it. So that's more where the nerves come from, is that, oh God, I just hope I don't say anything daft or make myself look silly. But then you also realize that these people are exactly the same as you are and we're all from exactly the same starting point in life, and we've all got to where we've got through either a talent or whatever it is that's got you there. So they're not really to be scared of in terms of people because if as soon as you explain, I just want to get a really beautiful photograph of you, and this is how we're going to do it, and hopefully they're on board. I'm not trying to ever change the world of photography or anything like that. I'm not doing anything insane. I'm just trying to take nice photographs. So yeah, the nerves kind of go, and often with anyway, the people who you've mentioned, we'll just take them because that's the easiest thing. You don't get long enough to be nervous. You might get Kobe Bryant, we got 25 minutes with. So, if you were nervous, you would quickly be into 15 minutes and then 10, and then you're like, okay, I don't feel so nervous now, and I've got 10 minutes left. So you spend the time before that 25 minutes. We might have spent 3 hours setting up the lighting, and you can calm down in that situation.
So
But
you've
the
got
nerves have kind of settled, yeah.
Yeah. So you've got the
It's more
time. You got the
exciting.
time before they actually arrive to kind of get over that kind of
Yeah,
nervous
exactly.
energy and kind of go, oh,
Exactly.
wow, we're shooting so and so today. Yeah, is everything all set up? Yes, good. Okay, cool.
Yeah, and you do the
Now
shot and you
it's
do the
done.
shot and you do the shot and then you come back and you're all ready. And yeah, like you said, the nervous energy probably is there a little and you pace around a little bit, but I think you've also got to show them. I think if someone
And
came in
preparation
who
as
was,
well.
say again.
And preparation as well.
Yeah,
Everything, you prepare, you know what you kind of want to shoot, you know, you kind of angles that you want to shoot that person at and
yeah,
stuff like that. Because I think, you haven't got time to kind of go, what should we think? What should
yeah. Can we try?
we
Do you think we can just try this? But also someone once told me, oh, I forgot what they told me.
do?
But oh no, so it was whenever you're doing something, it doesn't matter if it's a celebrity, as you've said, or an athlete or a musician or whatever. Whatever job you're doing, if you're starting to feel nervous, simplify it. And I thought that was really good advice because some of the best photographs for me,
Mm,
well, they're just simple. That's all they have to be. You don't have to go wild with your lighting, wild with your styling, or wild with anything, your ideas. Just take a nice photograph. And that you can do with the sun outside, your eye, and your camera. That's all you need. So when you start feeling that, it's like, right, let's just strip it back. Nice photo, done.
yeah.
Let's not overcomplicate it.
And going on to that, like talking about like the best image and stuff, what would you say is the best image that you've ever taken?
Uh, uh, um,
Or do you think like people's opinion of like the best image that you've ever taken compared to the image that you think is the best image?
oh yeah, I'd love to know. I'd love to
But
know that.
I think the Kobe Bryant picture
Yeah.
is the image that you'll be most remembered for at this precise moment.
Yeah, I think I do say that a lot actually. Even just I just say it to my fiance that we that's the only picture we have hanging in the house. I don't really care to put my own work up. I think it's a bit weird. Um, you know, I have other photographers' work I love, but to put your own up, I don't know. It's a bit like those guys who do selfies of themselves and post them on the internet. I'm not really into myself enough to do that.
Mhm.
But the Kobe one, I think everything was quite special about that. The fact that I was commissioned, you were, I think I was with you. I think we were
Yeah.
at 6, 7. You think, why have they asked me? Like, we're flying to LA. Like, there's thousands of photographers there who would love that option. Like, I just couldn't fathom it. And then, we managed to wangle them to fly me in premium economy. So I remember thinking, I've blagged that. I've told this story of not being able to fly over 8 hours unless it's in business class, to which they came back and said, okay, we counter that and we'll put him in premium. I was like, yeah, buzzing. I got to stay in a really nice hotel. We couldn't take an assistant. There was no budget. It was editorial. Didn't have the money back then. To maybe now, I would be like, okay, I can fly an assistant out with me. We can
I think
figure
I
that.
managed to sort you out an assistant out there, didn't I?
We got a good assistant, an Australian guy.
Yeah, I think he was my friend who was
Yeah,
out
he
there
was.
at the time.
Oh, well, he was brilliant. I think about him a lot because I got there and I didn't know him, and I'm doing the biggest shoot to date. The biggest athlete to date of that date. Sorry.
Yeah.
Um, And then I remember taking the pictures, and what I'd done is I'd sketched them all out. So on the plane, I don't know what the flight is. It might be 11 hours. So I had a sketchbook, and I just thought, what would be good practice is to not watch 20 films or whatever. Like sketch out, and I did 8 pages of terrible sketches, but ideas of what I might want to do. And I remember when we got on set, we set the light up. It was really simple. It was about 3 lights, and 2 of them were on the backdrop. So it wasn't difficult. And he came in and I showed him the book and he was really impressed. Like said, "Oh, who's done that?" And I was like, "Me on the plane." Like there's nothing special here, but this is exactly what I want you to do because we've got 25 minutes. And I think he really appreciated that. And then I just remember getting back to the hotel and you sit down and you think, okay, I think I've done a good job. You open it up and you don't often get that, but the pictures, I was literally in awe of my own pictures. Like, I've got it. I've got the 3 pictures that I love the hands picture. I love the back of the head picture. And I love the one with the basketball. And I just remember I closed a laptop because it was almost like I'd seen something I shouldn't have done. So I just closed the laptop and I'm just going to order a cup of tea or whatever. I don't drink. So I was ordering a cup of tea. And then I went back in and yeah, I still am really pleased, and I'm glad that that may be the image remembered. It obviously comes in sad circumstances because if he hadn't have passed, people would have continued to shoot him.
Mm,
Um, and as far as I know, studio shoots after that with him, I haven't really seen very
mm.
many, and certainly none that with a cover of magazines. I could be really wrong in that, but again,
It kind of took over a different meaning,
it did,
since his
and it
past. So it's kind of like it's a picture where people remember him by, which is kind
yes.
of weird because it's like it's not it was never meant to be like
No,
that.
no, no. Never meant to be. Well, the actual picture that I wanted of him is the one of the back of his head, and he's just got his hands because I I remember explaining that one actually ran on the cover, and I remember explaining to the editor why I wanted to do that, and it was because at the time he was yeah, at the time he was the most famous basketball athlete. So I was like, well, you don't need his face. His hands are what give him that opportunity, not his face. So I
Hmm.
wanted to create an image that kind of showed his hands rather than his face. So that's why we did that. So yeah, anyway, hopefully that one, I wish it wasn't because obviously you don't want any success to come through a negative situation.
Yeah,
But um yeah, I'm glad it was me. And
yeah.
it went, it did kind of go viral when the news broke of him passing. That was the image that really went around the internet.
Mm.
It was all over Instagram. It was
I think Cristiano
celebrities and
Ronaldo
everyone.
posted it, didn't
Ronaldo. Oh, there was loads. I was screen grabbing them because I was about to fly somewhere. I remember. And my phone is just going insane. I've never had anything like that, so I don't know what that feels like for those people who have that daily. But it was literally I couldn't keep up with the dings, ding ding ding. Ding. I was getting annoyed. So I checked what it was, and then WhatsApp was going crazy, and then people would be like, "Oh my God, have you?" David Beckham posted that photo. People are like, "Oh my God, Bex has used your photo," and I'm like, "Okay, this is all great, but it's not great at the same time." It's like I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I don't know. Should I post it? Should I say anything? But yeah, so probably that image currently, and I'm glad. The other thing I would want to be kind of remember is the things I do with Kasabian because I've been photographing them for the last 12 years. So I would hope there's going to be some really iconic shots in there. So my hope is to be able to eventually kind of bypass that picture and
he?
have the one of the band that everyone will remember forever, which maybe the fans will, but I want to transcend that. Like you've got great pictures of Jim Morrison or whoever.
Mm.
That we all know without necessarily having to listen to their band. So yeah.
Do you ever feel, obviously, because you were talking before, when you're on the plane, I was like, why are they sending me from London to
Mm.
go and shoot Kobe Bryant in LA?
Yeah.
Makes no sense. And has that happened to you many times in your career where you feel like not out of your depth, but you feel like this doesn't you feel like imposter syndrome or something?
Oh, 100. You know what? We spoke about this on set very recently because someone asked if I used to watch Faking It, which was a Channel 4 show. And I said I couldn't, and I haven't rewatched it. I didn't watch it then, I can't rewatch it because I often felt like someone might come into the studio at any point and go, "You're not a photographer. Why are you pretending? Why have you got these lights, these things?" So you get imposter syndrome a lot. But I tell you, when my son was born, I think I forgot a lot about me worrying about myself because you take on a different role
Hmm.
and something inside you changes. Um, so now I feel like without wanting to be completely cliched, you're doing it for someone else that's far more important than your client. You're
Hmm.
doing it because I want my son to be proud of me. I want to be able to leave him something. I want, money aside, I don't really care for that. But if when I go, he can say, "Look at this stuff my dad did, he was incredible," then that's enough. So that's what I think about a lot now, which allows you to think a little bit less about whether or not you're an imposter or you're faking it or you're not good enough. I try to just not let those thoughts come in anymore
Yeah.
because also I think once you get over a decade in, you can't keep feeling like that. Otherwise, you're literally never going to move forward. So I think it's good to have those feelings somewhere, but it's better to quickly overcome them and go, no, I'm not an imposter. I'm brilliant.
Well,
An athlete
yeah,
wouldn't enter if an athlete, let's just take football because that's the easiest for me, but say a footballer ran over that white line, I'm about to start, oh, I'm not good enough. Oh no, everyone's looking at me. They're not going to play very well. So
yeah,
I think you quickly have to just go, do you know what? Someone somewhere said I am good enough and they've commissioned me. So
exactly.
therefore I am who I
You wouldn't
say.
be here if you weren't good enough.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
when,
But
so,
it's nice to hold on to a little bit of like not fear, that's not the right word, but a little bit of something that gives you the edge to just make sure you nail it.
and
You
how
don't want
much,
complacency.
and how much would you say confidence is a big part of when you're with these kind of big athletes and
Yeah,
actors and musicians that, you have to kind of bring this confidence, even though there might be some self-doubt, but
yeah,
it's constantly having that confidence because if you don't show confidence in yourself to them, then do you feel then they then just go, oh, actually, I don't
yeah.
trust what he's doing.
Quickly that would happen. The same way, just take you away from the creative industry and say you went to the dentist and he's fumbling around. I don't know which tooth it is, but I'm gonna guess it's one of these two. Like you'd quickly go, I'm gonna leave and I'm gonna make so the athletes, the celebrities, whatever you want to say, they all have an image to protect. So you
Yeah.
you have to help that happen. You can't make them look stupid and you can't photograph them badly because that's going to affect them. So they would quickly be like, hang on, whoa, 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 this isn't where I thought it was going to be. So
And
even if you are somewhat, you can play a character, you almost change into someone else a little bit. I remember just last week we were doing a portrait session with six different people, and I had the art director sat next to me, and I just said, I'll probably talk a lot of rubbish. So just maybe don't think what's he on about or, laugh too hard because all I'm trying to do is show the person there that I'm confident, but also trying to bring something out of them through conversation. So I
yeah.
think once you can converse with someone and you can figure out who they are very quickly, they then might put a little bit of trust into you.
And do you um one of the things we did back in 2019, we kind of joined back up together and we collaborated on a little project called 12.
Oh yeah,
Do you remember that?
still love that. I was
Um,
looking if I had it.
and one of the things I was just thinking about just now is obviously, boxers compared to photographers. So, a photographer has a team of people,
Yeah.
but then when they come to shoot, it's just the photographer and
Mm.
the
Yeah, great.
and the talent. And the same as a boxer going into a ring and fighting another fighter. They've got their
Mm.
team around them, but they go and it's like, right, it's just on you two now. So going back to that project, when you went up and down the country photographing boxers such as Conor Ben, Carl Frampton, Anthony Yard, Daniel Dubois, and many
Mm.
others, what was the experience like, and what did you learn from spending time around these boxers?
Well, the experience, let me think here. So at first I was scared because I was going to boxing gyms and or just gyms. I don't know if there's specific boxing gyms, but I was going to gyms. And I think I would have had an idea based on football of what training and camp might look like.
Hmm.
And it doesn't have to look like that. So you're turning up and there's other people around, like other people using the gyms and whatnot. So I always remember thinking, oh, it's not quite as glamorous as you might believe. Watching the big Hollywood fights, the big bouts and millions of pounds that are spent on all them, and suddenly you're in this small gym in Croydon or Sheffield or wherever that was. But the discipline, I was in awe, and I always will be in awe of boxers' discipline. I think it's fantastic, and the way the way they approach camp. So I liked that, and I still take that now as like just everything's very serious and they're very on it in terms of diet and training regime. So I was like, I can be like that. I don't need to enter the studio like I've just had the best 2 weeks of my life, eating wise. But also just learning a lot about them through talking and realizing they're not going in the ring just to hit their opponent. They're working out their opponent. There's a lot of tactics in there. They're very intelligent people.
Mm.
All things that before you start looking into world boxing, you don't associate with that world. I rightly or wrongly, just thought the two hardest men of the town go into the boxing ring and try and knock each other out. It's like, yes, they may try and knock each other out, but it's a whole system. And watching their training regimes and
It's
watching
calculated.
it's brilliant. It's brilliant, and I absolutely loved that project so much that I think we tried to do it again, and it didn't really get off the ground. We were hit with COVID because I remember I spoke to somebody the other day about that. I was speaking to Team GB, if you remember,
Oh yeah.
about them doing their boxes before they went off to the Olympics, which obviously all got cancelled.
Mm,
And I have these moments sometimes where there's another project that similar thing happened where it didn't happen, but it had all the promise. And it's one
mm,
of those I think if that hadn't have happened and Team GB and we'd have gone and photographed their young boxers, 12 may have become something else.
yeah.
Been brilliant. But I still love the photographs we made of the boxers. And me and the guys that we met, you did such a fantastic job, obviously, of curating that group of 12 of them. Um, but yeah, I mean, I don't know where to go with the rest of that, but I learned a
Um,
lot. I did learn a lot, and even learned a lot about because you talked about teams there, but I stripped it right back and I just went with one assistant. So, normally we'd have two assistants, a digital operator, a creative director. Then there's a stylist, a hair, and then there's the brand, and then the black. The list kind of goes on. You can
mm,
suddenly have 25 people all around you, and I've just gone to meet complete strangers who put the trust in you and just with one assistant and you've got to think on your feet because you're in an environment that you can't pre-plan anything. You haven't met the person before. So again, I just quickly spoke about sport, and I think sport's a great leveler because you can talk about sport whether you're brilliant at doing it or not. You can have the knowledge. So it was um it was great in that respect of learning just more about myself and then about how other industries can work for you. And like I said, the discipline aspect and just taking everything that little bit more seriously than I might have done in the past has stuck with me as well.
and how do you think you've evolved over the years as, obviously like 10 years of just knowing each other, like, how
Mm.
do you feel like your style's changed, has your approach changed, or is it your kind of way of thinking about photography changed at all?
Yeah, probably all of the three you've just asked me. But fundamentally, I still wanted to do the same thing, which was just take classic photographs. I've never tried to have. I mean, maybe I have a style. I don't know. I wouldn't be able to answer that. But I never wanted to have a style that identified me so precisely to one period of time that I would have to then change. I've always
Mm,
just wanted to, even when we first started, I wanted to go. Classic's a bit of a wanky word, but I wanted to go into a world where I would just make photographs that would last. You don't want to look back and cringe and go, "Oh, what was I thinking?" Or, "Oh God, do you remember when I first tried this and how bad it was?" But I thought it was amazing. My approach is just, yeah, I mean, you end up with teams around you, so you have to kind of develop because you become a little bit more in charge than you did 10 years ago
mm.
because you've got bigger teams behind you and more money being thrown at the projects you're working on. So development personally is vitally important, and I think that's happened. But otherwise, I don't feel any different. So I think I still follow it in the same way I would have done, but just with more knowledge, more
Mm.
confidence. Yeah.
Would you say you've reached a stage in your life where you've learned a lot, and what lessons would you want to impart to, people coming through? What would be your kind of advice?
I mean, I feel like I've learned a lot. I mean, I never assisted, which is a one route into the photography world. For those that wouldn't know, that is you can work alongside a photographer, helping them do their job and learning and seeing how they work. And, you'd learn a way of photographing that you might take forward into your own career. So I didn't do any of that. of which I would say is probably quite important. I wish I had have done that because I would have gained knowledge quicker. I was learning on the job a
Hmm.
lot of the time, which is where I think some of the kind of early imposter syndrome and faking it reference came from, is because maybe I was because I didn't have that knowledge. Um,
But would you have changed anything of how
I
you kind
don't
of
think so because I look
it's made
around
you?
and I think I'm fine. I'm really happy with my achievements to date.
Mm.
I like where I'm sat. I like who I'm being represented by. I like the clients that I've got. Um, so I wouldn't change. No, I probably wouldn't change it, but it may be a bit of a rogue approach. I mean, I must have had much more confidence right at the start than I give myself credit for because it's a scary industry to try and go into, especially if you don't think you're great at it. Um, so I managed to do that, but um, yeah, I mean the advice would be, find photographers you like, communicate with them if you can. People are terrible at getting back to you. Don't be upset when they don't because it happens a lot. You can keep trying, and eventually that person's going to go, you know what, this person sent me 6 emails. I'm going to reply. Otherwise, I look like a bad person. And ultimately, everyone should and be a good person because everyone's been at that point of the sixth email. Um,
Very true.
but yeah, the advice would just be that, and to keep going and do it for the right reason. Don't ever do anything ever. Some people do it for money. Oh, we can make a lot of money. Oh, they can get a lot of a big day rate. Don't do any of that. That'll all come should you be good at your job.
Mm.
That's the fundamental thing. So you got to make sure you're good and have a belief and have a way that you enjoy photographing. You're not ripping anyone off. You're not just looking through the magazines going, I'm going to do the same as them. Try and
Mhm.
find your own voice and reason for doing it, and then the money from that will flow if you want it to. It doesn't have to be in abundance. You don't have to, it's the wrong profession for 90% of us if we want to come into it for money.
Mm.
There's so many more jobs we can do that will give you that. But you get a lot of happiness from being a photographer. You get to meet people constantly. And I think that's, we're not around long enough to not meet as many people as possible because that
Mm.
would be quite a sad world. So you get to meet that. You get to meet those kind of, well, lots of people. And yeah, just enjoy what you're doing.
Um, what do the next 10 years look like for you?
The next 10 years are very hard to see because we are facing an epidemic of AI, which could, I mean, you could end my job tomorrow if you wanted. You could literally go, we don't need Neil anymore or the rest of them because we can type anything we want. You still have to have the mind for it. You still have
Mm.
to go, okay, I want to photograph a boxer on the North Yorkshire moors. We're gonna set up camp there with a boxing ring, and he's gonna train up there. Well,
Mm.
imagine trying to produce that. It's very difficult. I can type that in to an AI generative program, and that would be produced. So that's the worry: is AI could literally eradicate the industry. I'm hoping it doesn't, but it could.
So is
Um,
there a part of you then that kind of, obviously with that, everyone likes to think ahead and get,
mm,
and look ahead to what they've got coming up and just have a plan. But for you, is it kind of focusing on the here and now and just kind of see where it
yes.
goes and kind
Where
of
it
look?
goes. I mean, I
You
do
can't
think
control, the future as it were, but you
I
can
can't
control the
control that.
present.
It's out of control as it is, I can't control that. And the more photographers and people that use it, the more it learns, which is a scary thing, is that the more
Mm.
photographers are using it, the more AI knows what to do, the more realistic it can be, and the more accurate it can be. So I don't feed into it whatsoever. I do worry, I do, because, I've had a really sort of I would like to say I've had a nice and kind of easy-ish life. I'm not grafting like people who tarmac roads are, or people who are maybe plumbers. And those guys have to really work. And I take photos and I go and I say, "Oh, can we have a nice light here?" That's as sort of tricky as it might get. Um, but in 10 years, I just don't know where we'll be. So I it's hitting me more recently that I should have something, you know, what can I develop, not in terms of like an app or a product, but what can I go on to? What of the people, if I get the old face magazines, ID magazines, whatever, you see hundreds of photographers' names. Well,
Mm,
99 of them you know you haven't heard of, or you don't know what they're doing now. So
mhm,
it's kind of going, I am going to be that name. It's coming to me. It's just part and parcel of getting old. And there's people now half my age that are leaving university that'll be brilliant and have the same kind of confidence and energy I had, that are banging on doors.
mhm,
Um, so I need to figure that bit out because it is quite scary. But at the same time, it seems like it's soon, right? I'm 42 now, so it seems like 10 years will come and go really quickly. But
mhm,
it's another fifth of your life that you've lived. It's a
mhm,
long time, and there's so much that can happen and change and be learned in that time. That focusing on it now might be, it might be a hindrance rather
mhm,
than so maybe I do try and bury my head a little bit, get my head in the sand. I'm doing fine now. Let's just see what we do. Um, but there needs to be something at some point, whether or not I want to learn to be an agent, so going to step into that side. Okay, I'll represent the AI bots, which they'll be in 10 years if I'm not around anyway. Um, or do I open a studio? Because there's literally nothing in the north outside of Manchester that's of any kind of comparison to where we would shoot in London, which I find mind blowing,
mhm,
mind blowing that outside of London you struggle to find. Like I say, Manchester do have them, but how is there just two cities in the country with adequate studios? You know, I'd like to maybe that I would like to create something this side because I am
mhm,
this side, Yorkshire side, that is good enough to get people up to. I'd like to say to people, maybe you should all think about coming out of London a bit more and expanding. So maybe I've got something there that I can,
mhm,
put money into, and it's not just then a kind of career choice. It's also a passion, which I think
mhm,
would be nice. Being and now relocating back to Yorkshire, so maybe there's something in that I'll end up doing. But yeah, it's something I do have to think about because Solo would be my son there would be only 12, so I don't want to be saying to him at 12, "Dad's finished." Uh, we've run out of money. The industry's gone, so we're gonna have to, sell the house, do whatever. We're gonna have to. I don't want to do. I don't really want to do that. So
no.
yeah.
Well, last but not least, there's a big fight happening on May the 18th. Fury
Oh
versus
yeah,
Usyk.
I have
What's
heard.
your prediction? Will you be watching?
I am going to watch for two reasons. One, because I absolutely have fallen in love with Tyson Fury, and that's been a slow burner for me. I
Mm.
always was AJ glamour, muscle. Now I'm not. And I don't know if the program that he did at home with the Furies, I think that kind of helped me kind of even more go, do you know what? I actually really like this guy because he is pure boxing for me. He's from the right family and he does it for the right reasons. And he says it's not about money, but maybe a little bit of it is for him about money. But I find him brilliant, fascinating. His advice, the way he talks, I really love it. Nothing is staged or showbiz, other than the show, maybe. But he comes across. But the other side of it is, as a tactician, I absolutely love Usyk. And I think I really wouldn't, I'm not really in the boxing world whatsoever, but I really wouldn't want to call that fight because my heart wants Fury, obviously, but my head thinks Usyk may win. But then there's the size difference, which is, how are you putting a man down of Fury's size when you're Usyk size? I don't know, but I think it'll be brilliant. I really do. And I am going to watch and I'm very excited. I hate the set. What I hate is when I remember watching Bellew Usyk,
Mm,
and I wanted Bellew to win so badly that it's a bit like watching football with your own specific team, not
mm,
just a random Champions League game, for example. But when Bellew didn't win, I felt so sad and dejected. And I was
mm.
like, oh, if he could have just done this, or if he just dodged that point. And I know if Fury doesn't win, I'm going to have that feeling, which I really hate. And
Yeah.
no one really knows how he'll handle a loss either.
No, and I think a lot of that the thing what's kind of happened now with boxers and obviously within this new technology of obviously YouTube being a massive part is that you really bought into like the characters of boxing,
Yes.
and it's more than any other sport in my opinion that has these characters, and I think you really kind of feel for them and personally kind of want them to do well. I think
Yeah.
as much as we're watching two people hit each other, you still want them to both be fine and and get out safe and make
Yeah. Of
money.
course.
And I
Of course.
think
Yeah.
but they're each individual. You have such a they're so intriguing and just such interesting people. It's a very unique sport. There's nothing like it. I
No,
think
no,
in terms
I
of when you
agree.
watch a fight like a Fury Usyk, it's there's so much jeopardy. No one knows what's going to happen, and I think it feels a lot more kind of what's the word? I think it's more is the unknown compared to like when I watch football and stuff. I don't get that.
No, well, I don't get that from not anymore. But I don't know. I've always put that down to just being a bit older and a bit more like, of course. I also think with football, the money side of it really takes it away from the everyman,
Mm,
which is why I still love that. I support Bradford, and you're still getting frustrated, but you're getting frustrated at players that maybe aren't good enough, and you're saying they're not good enough. Well, maybe they're not, because these are just the players applying that are just playing their trade at
mm.
a very modest level. So we're not watching superstars, and I quite like that. But yeah, with the boxers, I feel like you can get a very personal connection to them. Never met Tyson Fury, but I feel like you do feel like you're part of his team, in
Mm.
terms of not his inner circle and training team, but you feel like if as a person, you fully back him and you want to be part of his team support. I don't know what you would call it because he's just a man, but I'm sure you get the gist.
He's very relatable in a lot of senses because I think just as anyone he is who he is, but
Yeah,
he he's like anyone else. So and I think sometimes with the need of social media and stuff, it's very easy to get kind of away from actually that these people are just human beings at the end of the day. They're
yeah,
nothing else apart from a human. I think
no, exactly
sometimes,
that.
people need to remember that. So they do make mistakes as do we as other
Yeah.
humans. And I
And
think,
I think mistakes are all part and parcel of our own development. And
mm,
complete side note, but the way people are cancelled now for saying the wrong thing, when they may have said the wrong thing, but with absolutely no intent to offend. They
mm,
just don't know where the right thing may be because rules change all the time. So I do hate that, but that was a complete side note. So yeah, they are with us, and I feel like boxers never really feel like superstars, even though they can go to that level because they earn the money to be at that
mm,
level. I don't feel like they ever feel like that, and maybe that's because they're an individual rather than a team. I'm not sure. Um, but I think you can buy into that a lot easier than you can with most sports. Oh, same with athletics. You watch the Olympics and you fall for these people who put 4 years of training into 10 seconds of 100 meters. And I love that. And it's the same with boxing. It's months and months and months of training for a fight.
yeah,
It's incredible dedication. It's not, oh, they've trained for half an hour, played the PlayStation, and they're playing on Saturday. It's literally you watching their life unfold. And I think that's where when you see that person lose, I really do like it when the box will lose and be humble enough to say I was beaten by the better man because both men have put themselves into the same situation of absolute dedication.
mm.
And for me, that's why it is a fantastic sport. I also love Tyson because he's doing it for the bald guys. So
Exactly. Well, on that note, thank you very much, Neil. It's been a pleasure talking to you
yeah, you
and
too, Thomas.
really enjoyed it. Thank you.
All right,
Take
no
care.
worries. All right, bye bye.